Hello and welcome to The Hindu. I am Priyali Prakash and you're watching Tipping Point, a weekly show where we look at climate events and the trends shaping our future. In this week's episode, we will discuss the deadline for updated NDCs, the warmest January on record, and a low-carbon alternative to bricks and concrete. Our main story today is about countries failing to meet the deadline to submit updated NDCs. We have talked about nationally determined contributions or NDCs in our previous episodes too. Essentially, NDCs are country-specific policies that form a pathway to its net zero emissions targets. Article 4.2 of the Paris Agreement requires countries to prepare and update these domestic NDCs to achieve their climate goals. NDCs are to be updated based on the Global Stocktake Report, which is a periodic review of how countries are performing in their efforts to control greenhouse gas emissions and to transition to cleaner energy. Countries were expected to submit their updated NDCs by February 10th, but only a handful of them managed to do that. According to an analysis by Carbon Brief, the countries that missed the deadline make up 83% of the global emissions and almost 80% of the world's economy. On February 6, UN Climate Chief Simon Steele delivered a speech in Brazil, which will host the next UN Climate Conference COP30 later this year. Steele said that it makes sense to take a little more time to draft national climate plans, properly outlining how they will contribute to this effort and therefore what rewards they will reap. He also added that countries do have time until September to submit their NDCs, which is when the Secretariat needs them to include them in the NDC synthesis report, which will be published before COP30 scheduled for November 2025. The NDC synthesis report is a summary of all national climate plans as submitted by parties under the Paris Agreement.
Because these national plans are among the most important policy documents governments will produce this century, their quality should be the paramount consideration. The vast majority of countries have indicated they will submit new plans this year. From the conversations I've been having, countries are taking this extremely seriously, which isn't surprising given these plans will be key to how much of the $2 trillion boom governments can secure for their citizens and their firms. So taking a bit more time to ensure these plans are first rate makes sense, properly outlining how they will contribute to this effort and therefore what rewards they will reap. At the latest, though, the Secretariat team needs to have them on their desks by September to include them in the NDC synthesis report, which will come out before the COP in Belém.
So far, countries that have submitted their updated NDCs include the United Kingdom, which has included reducing greenhouse gas emissions by 81% below 1990 levels by 2035 in its updated NDC. Other countries that have submitted updated NDCs to the UN are Canada, Zimbabwe, Singapore, Ecuador, and more. India is not on the list. As far as other major polluters are concerned, things are slightly bleak. Donald Trump is back as the President of the United States and has already announced that the US will exit the Paris Agreement. His drill baby drill statement from the inauguration day is reflective of his policies towards fossil fuel powers.
The inflation crisis was caused by massive overspending and escalating energy prices, and that is why today I will also declare a national energy emergency. We will drill, baby, drill.
This isn't the first time that countries have missed the deadline to submit updated NDCs. A similar trend has been seen in the past too, which is why most experts are saying that this shouldn't be the cause for alarm bells yet. Countries have time till September to decide how they intend to reduce their greenhouse gas emissions in the next decade. In this week's extreme weather event segment, we will look at the warmest January on record. The heat is relentless, and until we take drastic steps to counter it, it is not going to change. January 2025 kept up with the trend of recording the hottest monthly average temperatures ever. It was 1.75 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels. January temperatures came as a surprise to scientists too. Samantha Burgess, strategic lead for climate at European Centre for Medium Range Weather Forecasts, called it surprising, and this was because the La Niña trend, which creates a temporary cooling effect of global temperature, is currently in place. El Niño and La Niña are complementary atmospheric patterns that influence warming and cooling of sea surface temperatures in central and equatorial Pacific. The two opposing patterns occur in an irregular cycle called the El Niño Southern Oscillation Cycle. While El Niño causes the warming of sea waters in central eastern equatorial Pacific every few years, La Niña causes cooler than average sea surface temperatures in the equatorial Pacific region. Trade winds push warmer waters towards Asia, and colder Pacific waters lead to drier conditions in the southern United States and heavy rainfall in the Pacific Northwest and Canada. During El Niño, sea surfaces in central and eastern Pacific warm up, which leads to increased evaporation. This water vapor condenses to form water droplets that make up clouds, and the conversion of gaseous to liquid state of water is an exothermic process. Therefore, it releases heat into the atmosphere, increasing the atmospheric temperature. The opposite happens during La Niña. The sea surfaces are cooler, so less evaporation happens and resultant heating of atmosphere is lower. Because of these steps, the atmospheric heating is more during El Niño and lesser during La Niña. According to an older analysis by the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration of the United States, for 1 degree Celsius cooling during La Niña, global average surface temperatures drop by about 0.07 degrees Celsius. In India, El Niño causes weak rainfall and more heat, while La Niña intensifies rainfall across South Asia, particularly in India's northwest and Bangladesh during the monsoon. Stefan Ramstorff, professor of physics of the oceans at the University of Potsdam, said that this development despite La Niña is of serious concern and should call for urgent efforts to phase out fossil fuels. Our Climate Hope focus this week is on sugar crate, a low-carbon alternative to building materials like bricks and concrete. Sugar crate was developed through a collaboration between the University of East London and India's Chemical Systems Technologies. It is made by combining sugarcane fibers left over after sugar production with sand mineral binders. Using sugarcane fibers for building materials allows for a way to store biogenic carbon while reducing waste. India produces a large amount of sugarcane, and the leftovers from the industry can be easily used towards manufacturing sugar crate. A freestanding school building has been built using sugar crate as part of the Panchsheel International College in Noida, Uttar Pradesh, which falls in India's sugarcane belt. The school will serve as a skill development hub for local students. That's all from this week's Tipping Point. Thank you for watching. If you found this discussion insightful, please subscribe to The Hindu.